I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar today. My name is Trina Carey, and I am Vice President of Sales here at Sienna/Aspira Senior Living. I'm really excited to have Emily here with us today from TD. Emily has worked as a financial planner with over 7 years of financial planning services experience. Emily's actively engaged in fostering strong client relationships and helping clients achieve their personal financial goals. She has a business degree and same as mine, political science degree from Brock University, and previously worked in a TD retail branch, banking as well as TD direct investing prior to becoming a financial planner. Emily has a passion for women in wealth and focuses on ensuring her clients are confident with what they can do with their money and what their money can do for them, and helping them transition through the next phase of their life seamlessly. Emily today is going to discuss the 5 must-haves in estate planning, and which will help you understand the importance of estate planning. And Emily will help us by offering us tips for engaging in discussions with family members, but perhaps ideas on how to get the conversation started, and will give you a better understanding of the steps that you can take to help protect and pass on your wealth. At the end of the discussion, we will open it up for any questions, live questions, or you can drop them in the chat, and then I will help facilitate that at the end of our call, and I'll be able to answer any questions you may have specifically on retirement living. And Emily, I hope I haven't messed that up too badly, and I will pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the warm intro, Trina. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited you made the time to be here today to learn more about estate planning and how to engage your family in the 5 must-have estate planning conversations. Often women are the catalyst for these money conversations, and at TD for Women for Wealth, we are dedicated to empowering you to take care of yourself and your loved ones through education about important wealth planning topics. As Trina stated, my name is Emily, and I'm an associate planner with TD Wealth Financial Planning, and I've been in the industry since 2016. Today, I wanted to take the time to talk to you about a very important subject, as we stated, around the estate planning process and why it's so important to have an estate plan in place. I'm going to be offering tips for engaging in these discussions and some reflection questions around the 5 must-have estate planning conversations. Hopefully, by the end of our time together today, my goal is that you will have a clear understanding of the steps you need to take to help protect and pass on your wealth, and how an advisor like myself can help throughout this whole process. So I wanted everybody on here to take a minute to just self-reflect and think about if they personally have an updated estate plan. Now, if you answered no to yourself, and if you don't, you are not alone. In one survey, only 35% of Canadians that had a will in place said it was up to date, and many said that they don't even have a will at all. As you can see from the second statistic on the slide, women are actually less likely to have a will in place than men. This is particularly worrisome as women statistically live longer than men, often are left managing their finances alone, and need to have a proper estate plan in place to protect their wishes for their estate. An updated estate plan can also provide you with reassurance that the people you leave behind will be taken care of. Now, it's really easy to put off an estate plan because realistically, who actually wants to talk about their death? But not having a good estate plan in place when you die can be a disaster for your family and actually be extremely costly. So let's take Aretha Franklin, the famous soul singer. She died at 76 without an estate plan. She was worth an estimated $80 million US. And the lack of a written estate plan resulted in her 4 sons and her managers setting up fighting in court for over 3 years without seeing any of the inheritance money. My guess is that Aretha didn't want her family to be engaged in a prolonged family conflict, pay high legal fees, and lose a sizable portion of their inheritance to the government to pay taxes. So if you die without a will, provincial legislation makes decisions for you, not your family. There are negative tax consequences, meaning less of your wealth is passed on to your beneficiaries, and you forfeit control over your estate and legacy. Now, do you really want provincial legislation to decide your funeral arrangements? who is the executor of your will and where your money is going to go when they're gone. Realistically, the best way to avoid the situation is proactively creating an estate plan and reviewing it and periodically. So today, let's make sure we're all on the same footing. Let's briefly discuss what an estate plan is. So on the slide, we have a definition of an estate plan, which is a process of designating who will receive your assets and handle your responsibilities after your passing. Now, an estate plan encompasses all of those key terms below, which is a combination of a valid will and a strategy for directly transferring your assets through joint ownerships or designated beneficiaries. Your estate plan will also name someone who is responsible for carrying out your wishes, who you would name as your executor. You can also name who will look after your children if you die while they are minors, which is named the guardian. Naming beneficiaries designates who receives your assets after you pass. A power of attorney is someone who will handle your affairs if you become unable to manage them yourself due to incapacitation, due to illness or aging while you're still living. And then living trusts and testamentary trusts are used as tools to aid in the transfer of your assets. So a lot of definitions there, but you do not need to be an expert on estate planning, as you can always consult with an advisor like myself who can guide you through the steps needed to create a solid plan. You may be thinking you don't have enough money to bother with the estate planning, but you will be surprised by the extent of your property when you consider your home, registered accounts, life insurance, investments, and business assets. Not only does an estate plan allow you to be in control of how your assets are held, taxed, and ultimately shared with your beneficiaries, it is a wonderful tool to get your family talking about money together. So the value of a good estate plan cannot be understated. It brings you comfort as you know that your assets will be inherited by the people, charities, or even furry friends you want it to be. Being proactive allows you to make your wishes known and protect your assets and your family from having to fight it out in court. A good estate plan allows you to have control over your asset distribution, whether it's beneficiaries, charities, furry friends. It allows you to avoid taxes and probate by the government, helps you plan for business succession, prepare your heirs and beneficiaries for what is to come when they inherit all of these assets. It expresses your wishes, even for living wishes, including aging, and allows you to pass on your family values. Now, Betty White is a great example of being proactive with her estate planning. Betty was a beloved actress and lifelong advocate for animals. When she died at 99, she had a written, up-to-date estate plan that clearly expressed her wishes and the legacy she wanted to leave behind. One of the stipulations of her plan was that $5 million would go to her pets for their care and comfort after she was gone. Yes, you definitely can leave money to your pets. For anyone that knew of Betty's work with animals, it was no surprise that this was part of the legacy she wanted to leave behind. A great example of how an estate plan can honor your values and transfer your assets to those causes and people you love and make sure that your legacy lives on after you. So now that we know some basics about estate planning and understand the process of creating one, let's talk about the importance of communicating your wishes to your family, probably the hardest part of the estate planning process. Many people find talking about money with your family members challenging. If you feel this way, know that you are not alone. There are many roadblocks, including our society's taboo against talking about money, the fear of discussing your own or partner's inevitable death, complex family dynamics, and the uncertainty of how to start these conversations. It is very important to overcome these roadblocks, as 70% of wealth transfers fail due to breakdown in family communication and trust. It is not usually the technical side of aspects of estate planning that fail. It is families not having prepared for the next generation for what is to come through open and honest money talks. Now, money talk taboo is nobody's fault. Many of us grew up with no roadmap for having these estate planning conversations. But today, our goal is to provide you with the guidance on how to engage in these important dialogues to help make sure you don't become one of the 70% of families that fail to successfully pass down their wealth to the next generations. So there is some good news. The pandemic prompted more women to talk about finances with loved ones. A survey done by UBS in 2021 found that 68% of women have discussed money more with their partners since the onset of the pandemic. and 48% of women have discussed inheritance more with their kids. Additionally, TD's annual Love and Money survey found that 45% of Canadian couples said it has been easy to talk about money during the pandemic. So, although the COVID-19 pandemic has been hard on all of us, there is one silver lining, as it has opened up lines of communication in families about money and the estate planning process. So, where do we start? Well, we start with you. Before we can engage your loved ones in an estate planning conversation, it is very important to reflect on what is important to yourself. What values do you want to live by? How do you want to age? What and to whom do you want to pass on your financial and non-financial assets to? Did you know that women and younger generations are the most motivated to make a difference through charitable giving? These questions may first seem overwhelming, but with a bit of reflection, I find that a vision for the future will come more into focus. Research has shown us that taking time to visualize and emotionally connect with our future self aids in long-term financial decision-making. Therefore, here's an exercise that is a great way to start the dialogue with yourself. Everybody take a minute and imagine yourself in 10 years, 20 years, and beyond that. What does it look like? Where are you living? What activities are you involved in? Who is with you? Take a minute to get a clear picture in your mind's eye. Now, let's write down a few sentences about your future self. You can spend more time with your future self after this workshop, but for now, let's use what you discovered to help ponder these questions. We want to focus around finances. How much do you need to live on in the future to maintain the lifestyle that you want? What do your expenses look like on a monthly basis? Do you still have a mortgage? Do you want to downsize your home? How does your day-to-day monthly income help with cover your monthly expenses? What about your health? What type of healthcare benefits do you currently have? What are your long-term care needs? And what do you anticipate needing in terms of support? Housing is where you're looking to live, either stay in the same place that you are now, downsize, look at assisted living, or living with a relative in the future if health is an issue. You want to focus around your social and emotional well-being as well. How will you spend your time and feel a sense of purpose in this next phase of life? Now, you don't have to have all the answers now. It is just important that you understand that there are many decisions and things to consider when putting together an estate plan and passing on your wealth. In time and through conversations with others and professionals, your vision will definitely become clearer. Here are some questions to help you reflect on what is important to you and who you want to talk to during the estate planning process. We want to think about, what is my ideal vision for where and how I will age? What do I want to be remembered for after I'm gone? What conversations do I need to have with my family to make sure my wishes are known? Now that you've thought about your personal individual vision, it's time to talk to your partner about estate planning. If you are not in a relationship at the time, keep in mind that it's a perfect time to talk with a trusted relative, friend, or just a contact about your plans. Creating a shared vision for your estate plan starts with identifying your core family values and aligning your goals. With 51% of couples disagreeing with how much money they need for retirement, it may be that it takes some time to make decisions that satisfy both of you when it comes to estate planning. Take it, Stan and Lorenda as an example. Married for almost 30 years, they have 2 adult daughters and both contribute to the household wealth, working in jobs that they enjoy. They agree on many things, but when it comes to how much money to leave their children, they see things very differently. Stan comes from a family that believes in working hard, creating wealth, and then leaving those assets to the next generation. Whereas Lorenda comes from a family that believes in working hard to enjoy your retirement, so spend it while you have it. She thinks as parents, they have given their girls a good education and helped them buy their first homes, and that to her is sufficient. Lorenda would prefer to give her wealth to her favorite charities, not her children. After many conversations between the two of them, Stan and Lorenda agreed on a solution. They set up their estate where 50% would be passed down to the next generation, which would honor Stan's family values, and 50% would go to Lorenda's charitable causes, honoring her value of giving back. Another question to consider when speaking to your spouse is what is fair versus what is equitable. So fair treatments mean beneficiaries inherit the same dollar amount in assets and are all considered equal. You have 2 kids and therefore the estate is split 50-50. But what if one kid inherits $500,000 house and then the other kid inherits $500,000 RSP? It looks fair on paper, but after the estate is dissolved, it really means that the child who inherited the RSP would only net $250,000 due to all of the tax consequences. So in addition to tax considerations, some couples decide to divide their assets differently based on their adult children's unique circumstances. For example, if you have one child that is single with no children and is financially very successful, do you leave this child the same amount as your other 2 children that are both married with kids and working to make ends meet? There is no right answer. It's truly just what you and your partner decide is best for your family. Are you familiar with the popular television show Modern Family? It was about a blended family and the fun they would go through as they worked through their complex family dynamics. The show rang a chord with viewers as the characters resembled what their family members looked like, diverse and full of complex family dynamics. The number of step families grew from 464,000 in 2011 to 518,000 in 2016, according to Statistics Canada. Putting that in a different way, blended families make up 12% of 2-parent households with kids under 25. When discussing your estate plan with your spouse, it is important to consider any different complexities in your family's relationship. If you have a blended family with older children from previous marriages, as well as minor children you share, determining what is fair and equitable may require more discussion than if it was just a traditional family with first marriage and children. But don't ever be discouraged about the planning complexities because the process is still the same. It just may take a little longer for you and your partner or spouse to come up with a plan, but it is well worth the effort. It is very important to practice good financial communication when talking to your partner and eventually other family members about money. So here's some tips and tricks to make the money talks a little bit more productive. The first one is to set a time and agenda. You want to pick a mutually agreeable time that is free from distractions. Decide on the agenda, keeping it short and focused on one topic. Ideally, it's best to start off with easier topics to help ensure success. You want to start with one that is not overly conflicting. Often sharing your values is a great place to start. There will always be time later on to get more into the complex topics, the more comfortable you get with these conversations. Ideally, you want to keep the meetings brief as it is pretty overwhelming once you start these conversations. So ideally try to limit them to about 30 minutes. Always take a time out if you need, because if one or both of you becomes heated or emotional, it's best to take a break. The best money conversations happen when both partners are calm and able to really listen and hear each other's viewpoints. Really, you want to review these money talk guidelines prior to sitting down to have these conversations to know that you guys are all on the same page when you're starting with your partner and then moving on to talk to your family as well. You can also always enlist a neutral party, as some couples just have trouble discussing finances and need a neutral, unbiased person to facilitate these conversations. Could be either a couples counselor, financial professional like myself, or a trusted friend. There may be a lot to discuss with your partner, leaving you unsure of where to start. So I recommend that you begin by picking one of these 3 questions as a way to begin. Either, what are the 3 family values we want to share with our adult children? What financial assets do we want to gift versus bequeath to the next generation or charities? What unique family situations do we need to consider and plan for? Once you have created your shared vision with your partner, it's time to talk to your adult children. If you don't have children, then consider if it makes sense to discuss your wishes with other relatives, such as siblings, a niece, or a nephew. Now, 32% of high net worth Canadians have fears about how their heirs will handle their inheritance, and 36% say that their children don't have the financial literacy to manage the potential windfall. The goal here is for you to share your plans, allow the next generation to ask you questions, and to help the person or multiple people that will be receiving your assets to prepare for their wealth responsibly. One thing to remember is that even though you are discussing your wishes with your adult children, your estate planning decisions are ultimately yours to make. The good news is millennials have believed that if society and families talked more about personal finances, it would be a good thing. In fact, 71% of millennials agree with this statement. Society would be healthier if people felt they could discuss personal finances more. Your fears about family money conversations may be generational, and if you decide to discuss your estate plan and financial planning needs, many of the next generation would welcome it. Talking to the next generation is about more than just money. Yes, financial capital is definitely one of the most important parts of your legacy, but so is your human capital, social capital, and your cultural capital. So financial capital encompasses all of your financial assets. This may include cash, investments, real estate, and business assets. Usually what we go to first when thinking about a will and estate plan. Social capital, on the other hand, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So your networks, social contacts, and your community. Your human capital is the interior resources of an individual. So your unique skills, knowledge, and talents. For example, your education, emotional resilience, physical health, ability to be successful in the world in general. And cultural capital is really your mindset, values, and your ethos of the family that you're looking to pass on. Ideally, you have talked to your kids about money since they were little in a perfect world. This makes the discussion about your estate plan just one more money talk with mom and dad. If you have not broken your family's money silence, don't worry because it's never too late to start. Remember, there's no perfect time to begin this conversation and no right amount to leave to the next generation. As parents, you need to evaluate your unique family situation as each family circumstance is different. And when you need to figure out how to discuss these matters with your children will be determined based on their emotional maturity as well. Your advisor can also help with bringing your adult children into the conversations. You can always look at bringing them into a meeting with your advisor and let your children ask questions. You don't need to tackle the estate planning conversation at this meeting with your advisor, but it does set the stage for future family meetings and letting your kids know that your financial professional can be a resource to them. So here on the slide is a few questions to begin the estate planning conversation with your adult children. Your father and I have been thinking about our estate plan and wanted to know your thoughts about what should happen with specific assets down the road. For example, I talk to my mom all the time about how I want all of her jewelry passed on down to me, and she's agreed with the exception of the one ring that my dad bought her when my brother was born, that'll be passed down to him. So we openly communicate about that, which has helped because now we're all aware of that situation. Something else you could talk to your kids about is as we move towards retirement, what are your thoughts about taking over the business? What it would be like if we sold the business? And what money lessons do you think you still need to learn to prepare you if you received an inheritance? Huge question to see if your kids have any gaps or any questions that they might have for you that they never knew to bring up. Once you begin talking to your kids, you may be surprised to learn how gratifying it can be to start having these conversations. Now let's look at one of the most challenging money conversations many adult children have to have with their parents. And that's the conversation about aging and finances. If you're worried about your parents' finances or uncertain if they have an estate plan, or even just concerned about their well-being, you're not alone. Many clients report these concerns, and with time and patience, most are able to get the information they need and be able to help their parents in the process. Previous studies have found that women are most likely to be the caregivers of their family and their parents. This was also true in 2018 when women accounted for 54% of Canadian caregivers. Women also make the majority of those that need to be cared for due to dementia. By 2031, it is estimated that 937,000 Canadians will be living with dementia, and more than 65% will be women. As women, it's important to be able to talk to your aging parents about money and also put an estate plan in place to protect your kids if you end up needing help with daily living as you age. As people age, they tend to have a decline in cognitive functioning. Some of that is a normal aging process, and at other times, it's a sign of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. Either way, you may be wondering how financially secure are your parents and how can you help them if age or illness impacts their ability to take care of their finances on a regular basis. Some of the first signs of a parent failing are unpaid bills, past due notices, and bounce checks. If this is your situation, it's important to ask your parents about these signs to understand what action you may need to take to make sure they don't fall victim to elder financial fraud. According to the latest research, 10% of Canadian seniors are victims of consumer fraud as they are very vulnerable to these con artists. I'm sure all of us have either gotten those texts or those calls about the CRA or a grandchild in jail that need money wired to them right away. I had a client that actually brought me the voicemail that was left to them as she recorded it on her phone. And she had said that if she wasn't at the house with her mom would have sent the money thinking that it was her grandchild in jail that needed help. So the best way to protect your parents is to talk to them about money and ask them if they have a wealth plan, including an updated estate plan. Even if your parent is not mentally failing, their health and well-being may decline over time, requiring more of your time and attention, or enlisting the help of a home healthcare providers or assisted living facilities. This is often the time that many women realize the need to estate plan themselves, as they don't want to burden their adult children with the worries that they are experiencing with their own elderly parents. Talking to elderly parents can be very tricky. For most of our lives, they have been taking on the parent role, and you have taken on the child role. Even if you're 60, you're still their little girl. Now, the roles feel reversed as you start to help them more and more. One thing to keep in mind is that as people age, there is a desire to remain independent and in control. While unspoken, most seniors have had a fear of their mortality or losing the privilege of making their own decisions. Therefore, it's very important to be compassionate as possible when you approach these conversations and to keep each conversation brief. For example, Kelly's 75-year-old father recently had a heart attack. When he returned home from the hospital, her and her brother tried to talk to their father about his financial situation with very little success. When she acknowledged her frustration and got support, she was able to brainstorm an idea with her brother that they both thought would help their dad talk about finances. Every Sunday, Kelly would cook her dad dinner, so one night she expressed that she and her brother wanted to make sure he was okay and taken care of, and that it would really help her if he could share some of his financial documents and plans. Together, they devised a plan that made her dad feel in control and allowed her to assess his financial picture. Her dad finally agreed to provide one piece of documentation, either a bill, insurance policy, a bank statement, each Sunday, and Kelly then could ask questions only about that piece of document and that while they were eating dessert. So even though it took months to get the information that Kelly wanted, it made her dad feel good, and it made her and her brother have peace of mind. Eventually, he did start opening up more and more, and it was less reluctant to share his finances with these kids. So when you're looking at starting these conversations, you really want to appreciate your parents' desire for independence. Be compassionate about your parents' fears of mortality. Keep the conversations brief. And when possible, allow your parents to feel in control while acknowledging your emotions and asking for their support. Some conversation starters to get these conversations and break the ice with your aging parents would be opening up and saying, I attended a seminar on estate planning, and it got me wondering if you had an estate plan in general. Do you? When was it last updated? Just call them out, just ask them. And then what would indicate you needed more help with your finances? Ask them how you can support them and what they need from you going further into the future. So you don't have to know all of the answers before ever reaching out to start a conversation with a financial advisor. You just need to know enough about estate planning and your specific family situation to know that an advisor can help guide you through this process. Think of working with an advisor like having a specialty doctor to help you navigate your journey of financial health. Just like a doctor, financial planners are specialists in their job, and their whole job is to be able to assess your current situation, notice any gaps in your financial or estate planning, and then work with you to fill in those gaps. When I'm working with my clients and their families, I focus on 4 key areas. That's building wealth, implementing tax efficient strategies, protecting what matters, and leaving a legacy. We actually build out a formal financial plan that is about 25 to 30 pages long that has recommendations and a breakdown of exactly what you need to do. And I actually recommend to a lot of my clients to leave it with their will so that their executor of their will knows exactly where they have everything and what the plan is. We're always here to help make sure your financial journey is a safe one for you and your family, and to ensure that your family is taken care of now as well as when you are gone. We also have TD specialists who work with you and your advisor to make sure we can help you in what matters most to you. Additionally, TD Wealth incorporates behavioral finance into our planning process through our one-on-one conversations, making your advisor uniquely positioned to provide you with the tailored advice that you need. On the screen here is an example of a wealth personality profile. So what you do is you answer a series of questions that will output these personalized results. And we focus on the 5-factor personality model, which is used to identify your main traits and can help us better understand how your unique personality may impact how you make financial and investing decisions overall. This allows your advisor to have a special insight into how you operate, whether you are an aggressive investor or a conservative investor, and how they can support you individually, as we don't like to build out financial plans or portfolios that are not customized. We want to ensure that we understand you and your goals so that it's fully customized to what you need. I encourage you to take the TD Wealth Personality Assessment. You can get a preview of your wealth personality profile by completing an introductory assessment on our website, which is attached here on the slide. If you're interested in uncovering your complete wealth personality profile and understanding how your results may impact investment decisions, please feel free to reach out to me directly through email. So before meeting with an advisor, consider what questions you want answered. Can you review my financial estate plan with me? What is the process if I want to make some changes? How can you help me to talk to my family about the plan? Now, a lot of the time, you can also walk into an advisor's office and just be honest about not knowing where to start. And we can start asking some open-ended questions that'll start you probing on what you need for your estate plan. I recently had a great success story about one of my clients. So Brian and Julie had found out, unfortunately, that Julie had cancer, and it was a terminal illness. So after they took the time to speak with their family as well as each other to build out a plan, they came in and spoke with me, and we reviewed their whole portfolio with TD and made some changes to ensure that everything for the estate planning process was in place to make it a seamless transition to Brian when the time came. So after taking the time to make a plan together and discuss with their families, we had put it all in place, having everything joined with beneficiaries up to date. They had their wills and everything up to date as well. And then when Brian came into me in September of 2020, after Julie passed away, he was so grateful that we had everything set up so he did not have to stress about the next steps. He knew that I was going to do everything on his behalf, and he was able to take the time to grieve. And now we've moved forward with everything rolled over and consolidated, and he only had to sign a couple of documents and not be coming back and forth or all over to different institutions. He knew I'd be able to do everything on his behalf for his TD profile because we had the plan in place, and he was so grateful that we had that conversation. Now, my ask for you is to start with the first thing that we talked about. Focus on you and start with those reflection questions that we first talked about in the beginning. I really hope you enjoyed this presentation today and are walking away inspired, and you're looking to ensure that your estate plan is updated and your family is informed of your wishes. The only next step for you is to book an appointment or check out our website for more information. So I'm going to hand it back to Trina, and she's going to walk you through some retirement living affordability.
That's great. Thank you so much, Emily. I was scribbling some notes, and I myself need to do some estate planning. I just recently got married and I'm of the blended family. So it was great taking notes. And I know that we've got a lot of people on the line and we've got some questions as well. What you see on your screen right now is it's a retirement living calculator, and this is located on our website. I think we're also going to send a copy of this to the attendees today. So you can kind of take a peek at what retirement living looks like and the cost of it. And then I think our next slide, actually, let's do the questions first, Emily, and
Sure.
then we can do that cute little video that we have.
Good.
So there's one question here, and I'm going to read it out, and if you can help, because it's a question I want to know the answer to as well.
Oh
So
God.
no pressure.
Yeah.
Um, so who do I give my banking and cards information with the code for the cards and passwords for online banking? Margaret wants to know, she also has a lot of reward cards and many accounts online that I have passwords. So what do I do with that information for them to be closed after my passing?
So technically for privacy, you're actually not allowed to share any of your PIN numbers or passwords with people. So I'm not going to advise on who you should be sharing that with because you're technically not supposed to be sharing that with anybody. But what I do recommend is with your will, having a portfolio printout that has all of your accounts, either with any institution that you're banking with and have investments with, as well as potential cards. So if you have Visa cards, just writing down the numbers and having just a piece of paper that is attached with your will, showing where all of your banking is, what cards you have, what other things that you have that might need to be closed down. And then your executor will come directly to the banking institutions or investment companies that you're with and do that on your behalf. So for example, when you come to TD, you would book an appointment directly with one of our personal banking associates. And if you're a financial planning client and one of my clients, I would do a joint appointment with them. We would take a copy of the death certificate and will, and each one of all of the top 5 banks have estate, like back office estate teams, and they deal 100% of the time with the estates. So we send the documents to back office, they start the estate process, and then they send the documents back to the executor that need to be signed and speak directly with the executor. And then really that's all that we do because TD or any other bank does it on your behalf. So there's nothing that your executor needs to do in regards to closing off those Visa cards or closing off those accounts other than going to the institutions that they're with.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
No worries.
Another question here is, can an estate plan help for someone who doesn't have a lot of assets?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even if you had $700 in your checking account and it's not joint and you don't have an estate plan in place, that $700 is still going through the government to figure out who your next of kin is. So it doesn't matter the dollar amount of your estate in general. An estate plan is necessary for every Canadian.
Excellent. I thought that was really, really interesting about making sure that you have that plan in place, because I think as Canadians, we spend a lot of money to the government every year. So we
Correct.
don't want to give them some more when we're not here anymore.